Across the Imperium of Man and in realms beyond reality, dark and malignant influences plot humanity's downfall. Be they demons of the warp, Xenos races older or younger than our own, or even other humans in the thrall of false gods, these enemies threaten to collapse worlds and even entire systems if left unchecked. In order to combat these foes and root out the threats facing the Imperium, a group of elite investigators was founded. This group answers to none save the Emperor himself, and its members command the ultimate authority and respect. It is whispered about fearfully across the Imperium, for though all know of it, none wish to encounter it. This group, and the sub-organizations that make it up, is known most commonly as the Inquisition. Today, we shall document the Inquisition's origins, how it operates, and the various subgroups known as Ordos within it. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. The origins of the Inquisition come at the close of the Horus Heresy. Malcador the Sigillite brought 12 individuals before the Emperor shortly before the arrival of Horus's fleet in the Sol system. 4 of the individuals were human, while the others were Astartes. With the blessing of the Emperor, Malcador took the Space Marines to Saturn's moon Titan, whilst the humans were left to set up the group that would one day form the Inquisition. Their names and identities are unknown, but there is a slim possibility that one of them was the Sister of Silence, Amandera Kendall, who was a known agent of Malcador throughout the heresy. There is also an alternate tale, which tells of 4 trusted servants, possibly aides of the Emperor, who gathered following the Battle of Terra to discuss the way forward. 2 believed the Emperor could be resurrected, where 2 did not. The 2 who did left to try and find the means to bring their lord to life once more, whilst the 2 who did not set up an organization to combat their efforts. This organization supposedly evolved into what we know as the Inquisition. Whatever the validity of either tale, or both, we will likely never be sure. There is a group within the Inquisition called the Ordo Originatus, who seek the truth, but they are opposed by the Ordo Redactus, who seek to hide it lest the enemies of the Imperium learn something from that knowledge. Whilst this ordo exists, it is likely the truth will never see the light of day. Both the Ordos Originatus and Redactus are considered Ordo Minoris, but we shall discuss what that means along with all of the other Ordos a little bit later. The Inquisition is entirely autonomous. Its agents answer to no one save the Emperor and act solely for the good of the Imperium. In their quest to root out Xenos, corruption, or any other threat, an Inquisitor has the power to demand aid from anyone and everyone, right up to and including the High Lords of Terra themselves. They are careful not to annoy the Adeptus Astartes or Adeptus Mechanicus, asking politely for help as opposed to forcing the issue, but at the end of the day, that is no reflection upon the authority the Inquisition holds over both of these organizations. If they push the issue, then the Astartes and Mechanicus will accept. Of course, this technically means that each Inquisitor holds theoretically limitless power, which brings problems such as corruption of the Inquisitor into the equation. Rogue Inquisitors are known to exist, but in general, the Inquisition keeps its agents under careful watch. Originally, the Ordo Malleus, also known as the Demon Hunters, were responsible for this. Think of them as the secret police for the secret police, if you will, as well as dealing with all the demonic nonsense, and it appears that they have continued this role into the 41st millennium. As for ranks, well, there sort of aren't any. All Inquisitors are of equal standing within the Inquisition, at least in principle, for their power is absolute in every case. The means of gaining authority are through one's reputation or influence. Experience helps, but is not guaranteed to get you anywhere. If the Inquisitor authority is recognized by others within the organization enough, they may be invited to become a Lord Inquisitor. This quote-unquote rank gives the Inquisitor an extra level of control over resources and their use by others in their Ordo or local sector. For those Inquisitor Lords who operate near to Terra, they may be selected as the Inquisitorial Representative in the Senatorum Imperialis, the High Lords of Terra, for up to 5 years. Again, there is no rank or authority associated with that position, but it puts the representative in a position to actually influence the Imperium at the highest level. Of course, one does not become an Inquisitor overnight. Agents of the Inquisition, or servants of Inquisitors, known as acolytes, can work their way into a role as they prove themselves trustworthy and capable. Eventually, some of them can be inducted fully into the ranks of the Inquisition and become Inquisitors in their own right, either with the consent of 3 separate Inquisitors / 1 Inquisitor Lord, or by inheriting the mantle of their former mentor should he be killed, for a time. Inquisitors can also assemble a group of henchmen, a seemingly motley crew of individuals drawn from across the Imperium to fulfill specific tasks. These include bodyguards, psychers to seek out demonic entities, medics, and many more. Within the Inquisition are many separate subgroups known as Ordos. Each Ordo has a specific role, whether that be the monitoring of another Imperial organization or fighting against a particular foe. The exact number of Ordos is unknown, but there are currently 3 Ordo Majoris and many Ordo Minoris within the Inquisition, which we will explore soon. An Inquisitor could be part of any Ordo, or even none, and is free to move between Ordos whenever they see fit, as they are equipped to take on any role. However, each Ordo does also produce its own membership, tailoring to a particular aspect of its work, especially in the case of the Ordos Majoris. Overarching the Ordos is the idea of Inquisitorial Philosophy. To make it simple, Inquisitors generally fall into one of 2 categories of thought, radical or Puritan, though both of these have many variations within them. As the names suggest, the 2 philosophies are wildly different. Radical Inquisitors can generally be summed up in the phrase, "the ends justify the means," and so they are much more open to using Xenos tech or demon hosts, along with other things, to fight their battles, as well as committing far more, how to put this, borderline heretical actions, if needs be. Puritans are much more firm believers in the inquisitorial doctrines, and will look on and sometimes persecute their radical brethren as heretics if they believed they crossed a line, or maybe a few dozen. I would speculate that the Ordo Hereticus is more Puritan, whilst the Ordo Xenos is more radical, with the Ordo Malleus being much more varied, but I cannot be sure. Now, before we lunge headlong into the Ordos Majoris, we shall explore the Ordos Minoris that we know of and their roles. This is not by any means a comprehensive list, as we do not even know how many Ordos Minoris there are, never mind their various functions. As to what this means, an Ordo Minoris is a small faction within the Inquisition, with a very small membership compared to the larger ones that takes on a very specific task or role. We shall begin with the Ordos who oversee the other factions within the Imperium. The Adeptus Astartes are monitored by the originally named Ordo Astartes, founded in M32 and around 50 Inquisitors strong. The Ordo Machinum monitor the Adeptus Mechanicus, and are primarily concerned with the reintegration of STCs and adaptation of Xenos technology for use by the wider Imperium. The Ordo Militarum are concerned with the Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard, and is one of the larger Ordo Minoris with over 500 members. The Ecclesiarchy is watched over by the Ordo Sanctorum, founded in M36, potentially as a response to the Age of Apostasy that took place early that millennium. Finally, the Ordo Sicarius was founded to police the Officio Assassinorum following the Wars of Vindication, an attempted coup against the Master of Assassins after the Age of Apostasy that saw whole wings of the Imperial Palace destroyed by neuronic warheads. It is possible that the Ordo Custodum, based on Terra, exists to monitor the Adeptus Custodes, and the Ordo Senatorum monitors the High Lords of Terra based on the names, but their true purposes are unknown, so that is purely speculation. The other Ordo Minoris are more diverse in roles, covering a broad spectrum of investigations and observations. The Ordo Aegis is concerned with the Cadian Gate and maintaining its security, though it's only existed since M40, which is odd given that there were no Black Crusades that millennium and there had been at least 9 or 10 before that point. The Ordo Astra is the nearest thing to astronomers in the Imperium, overseeing stellar cartography and studying it, for whatever it's worth by this point. The Ordo Barbarus, oddly named after the homeworld of the traitor Primarch Mortarion, is one of the smallest at only around 10 Inquisitors, and monitors the remaining non-industrialized Imperial worlds. The Ordo Excorium exists to oversee Exterminatus, which is pretty important given how destructive and final Exterminatus is. Plus, a world subjected to Exterminatus is lost to the Imperium, so it can't just be used whenever. As mentioned earlier, the Ordos Originatus and Redactus work in direct opposition to one another. The former seeks to uncover the truth of the Inquisitorial origins, whilst the latter attempts to censor and cover it up. The Ordo Scriptus has only 6 members, which is a pitiful amount, given the Ordo's task of monitoring official records on Terra itself. The very similarly named Ordo Scriptorum is the nearest thing to the overseers of the Administratum, trying to improve the efficiency of scribes so less oversights occur and thus more information is maintained and thus worlds are saved. The Ordo Sepulturum is seemingly the anti-Nurgle Ordo, trying to research the various plagues that run rife through the Imperium. It was founded in response to Typhus's zombie plague and mainly operates around the Eye of Terror. There are also a few Ordos of unknown purpose, the Ordo Desolatus, the Ordo Thanatos, and the Ordo Necros. The last of these is the most interesting, as whilst we know nothing about what it does, it is actually overseen by an entirely separate Ordo known as the Ordo Vigilus. Who knows what in the Emperor's name they must be getting up to? Something to do with the dead, perhaps? As the Necrons themselves would be part of the Ordo Xenos' remit. The final Ordo Minoris that we know of is the Auto Chronos, which, as the name implies, has a lot to do with time. This order was founded to study temporal anomalies resulting from warp travel, hopefully with the aim of dealing with or even harnessing them. Unfortunately, however, the order has vanished without a trace, though the reasons are unknown and disputed. Other Ordos Minores have disappeared down the years, but we know not their roles nor names. So that's the Ordo Minoris covered in as much extent as possible. Now we can look at the bigger groups in the Inquisition. The Ordos Majoris, Malleus, Xenos, and Hereticus. We shall begin with the Ordo Malleus, also known in some circles as the Demon Hunters, and the smallest Ordo Majoris. This order was founded immediately after the Horus Heresy, and is based upon the Moon of Titan, along with its Chamber Militant, the Grey Knights. The Chambers Militant are generally the warrior arm of each Ordo, and represent the finest warriors that the Ordo can call upon, and is charged with safeguarding the Imperium from the demonic, and keeping the nature/existence of chaos hidden from the general populace. Many, if not all, Malleus Inquisitors are Psykers, and any who aren't have a resolve of iron to ward off any demonic influence. The Ordo Malleus also deals with any internal issues, as they are charged with handling any Inquisitors who fall from the light of the Emperor. Of course, no one outside of the Ordo Malleus or the Grey Knights knows any of this, and even those who serve alongside them will not know for very long. All Astartes who serve alongside the Ordo Malleus have their minds wiped, lest they reveal some secret of the Ordo's role or existence, especially as no one is actually supposed to even know that the Grey Knights exist. Any non-Astartes are far less lucky. They are considered wholly expendable, and so any who survive the campaigns will be killed afterwards, though admittedly with full honours. The Ordo Malleus has a subdivision within it, known as the Chambers of Theoretical and Historical. This chamber is the equivalent to the Ordo Malleus OAP Society, filled with those older Inquisitors no longer capable of waging war due to ill health or disability. Instead, they do research within the Administratum, though that in itself is still a taxing job given the size of the Administratum libraries. Those Inquisitors still on active duty are known as Inquisitors Ordinary, though such a word does them a disservice given their almost unique arms and armour, forged by Malleus-aligned tech priests who use lost techniques in order to do so. While the Ordo Malleus is filled with heroes and legends, by far the best known Inquisitor drawn from their ranks is the Inquisitor Lord Torquemada Cotias, who rooted out a rogue Inquisitor attempting to use demonic artifacts at a conference that he himself was hosting, and granted a two-headed cyber eagle by the Mechanicus to aid him on the battlefield, as well as amplify his psychic abilities if he chose to harness them. Unlike the majority of the Ordo Malleus, Cotius refused to ever use the warp, or even consider it, implying that he is capable of doing so, even if he doesn't do it. The Ordo Hereticus is the largest Ordo Majoris, and thus the largest group within the Inquisition. It was founded in M36 as a direct response to the Age of Apostasy, making it by far the youngest of the Ordos Majoris as well. It was originally founded to monitor the ecclesiarchy, but it has since expanded to cover any internal threats such as mutants, rogue psychers, witches, and more. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this led to the unofficial moniker of witch hunters being given to the order. It also raises the question as to the existence of the Ordo Sanctorum, which also monitors the ecclesiarchy and so is pulling double duty with the Ordo Hereticus. I would suggest that the Sanctorum are a spin-off from the Ordo Hereticus, who possibly report back to the Ordo Majoris should any significant issues arise. Alternately, as the Ordo Hereticus monitors the ecclesiarchy across the galaxy and on campaign, the Sanctorum are the Terran branch who monitor the ecclesiarchal palace or the Adeptus Sororitas. The Sororitas' military chambers, known as the Sisters of Battle, are the nearest thing that the Hereticus has to a chamber militant. Whilst they are officially part of the ecclesiarchy, Sisters will respond if a Hereticus Inquisitor should call upon them, despite their radically varying ideology. The Ordo Hereticus also supplies the Grey Knights with the serfs and crew for the Grey Knights fleet. So as the crew doesn't pose a risk in the event of corruption during an engagement, every crew member has a hidden psycho trigger that the Grey Knights can use to wipe their higher brain functions and render them useless. It is also worth noting that a Hereticus Inquisitor landing on world is possibly the most terrifying thing an Imperial citizen could come up with, bearing in mind they don't know that Chaos and aliens actually exist, as they could literally be there for anyone. You, the planetary governor, Steve from Hablog 256, you just don't know who could be the hidden heretic or psyker. The best-known Inquisitor of the Ordo Hereticus is Fyodor Karamazov, a hardline Puritan who is carried on his throne of judgment, waste of a good dreadnought chassis if you ask me, and is known as one of the most brutal and unforgiving Inquisitors who ignores all pleas for mercy. Karamazov also managed to earn the enmity of the entire ecclesiarchy for his actions on a world called Salem Proctor, where he arrested a potential prophet or blessed of the Emperor and proceeded to torture him, then kill him, despite the protestations of the ecclesiarch himself. He appeared vindicated when Chaos Taint was found amongst the boy's followers, but the ecclesiarchy and certain resurrectionist parts of the Inquisition have disliked him ever since. The final Ordo Majoris is the Ordo Xenos, founding date actually unknown, but somewhere between the Ordo Malleus and Ordo Hereticus. Nearer to Malleus, though, by the implication that Hereticus is much younger than the others. Its chamber militant, the Death Watch, comes from the War of the Beast in M32 and fell under the Inquisition's wings soon after, so assumedly the Ordo Xenos is as old, if not older than that. Unlike the other Ordos Majoris, there is no secondary moniker for the Ordo Xenos, so I suppose no one could come up with a good shorthand that sounded right. To be fair, I can't either. The role of the Ordo Xenos is simple. Investigate and analyze the various alien species throughout the galaxy, destroying any perceived to be a threat, which is most of them. I am unsure as to whether individual Inquisitors specialize in one race or subset of races, i.e. Inquisitor X covers the Tau and their auxiliaries, Inquisitor Y deals with the various Eldar, etc., but given the sheer number of races in the galaxy, it must be difficult for an Inquisitor to know enough to combat whatever they find. An alternate theory is that Inquisitors will store everything they learn or know on a given race in a servo skull or diary, and do a lot of reading / have their memories implanted when necessary, but I also doubt that. The reason I suspect that many Ordo Xenos Inquisitors are of the radical variety, as I mentioned earlier, is in their weaponry. Xenos weapon is accepted or possibly even commonplace throughout the Ordo, used both by the Inquisitors themselves and the Death Watch. The Ordo Xenos is also the most common user of Exterminatus in the Inquisition, whether it to be dealing with a deep-rooted gene-stealer cult or some stubborn alien civilization that just won't shift off their homeworld, which actually means the Ordo Xenos has more blood on its hands than the Ordo that kills everyone who encounters it. The Ordo Xenos, despite never getting a named character in a codex ever, thanks GW, has several famous members. These include Inquisitor Cryptman, the man responsible for warning the wider Imperium of the oncoming Tyranid threat, and the Inquisitors Eisenhorn and Ravener, who both have entire novel series dedicated to them should you wish to learn more. The Ordo Xenos also gets the honour of my favourite Ordo Majoris, simply because of the variety of weapons and options available to them, and honestly my preference for the Death Watch over the other Chambers militant. And there you have it. The Holy Orders of the Emperor's Inquisition have had their origins, roles, and ideologies explained, at least as far as records would allow me to learn, and I thoroughly hope you enjoyed it. Now, I think we need to make a swift exit before the Ordo Heretica sends someone after me for sharing such secret information with the populace. Right, where am I going to go? Ah, webway portal. Perfect. Let's go. Comora. Of all the places, Webway, why did you have to put us here? I was kind of hoping for a craft world so we could talk about... Never mind that now. So, I guess we're going to talk about the Dark Eldar next time, ladies and gentlemen, you know, since we're in their city and all that. I am genuinely more scared of this than when we actually went through the warp. Maybe risking it with the Inquisitors would have been... Never mind, play the hand you dealt. So thank you for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and if the Dark Eldar haven't killed me, I'll see you all again. Goodbye.